The Great Betrayal: How the Democratic Party Alienated a Generation. At the heart of the American experiment lie foundational ideals of liberty and government by the consent of the governed. For a growing number of politically homeless Americans, however, the actions of both major parties often betray these core tenets. This friction reached a flashpoint in 2016 when the presidential campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders ignited a passionate grassroots movement. The subsequent revelation that the Democratic Party establishment actively worked against him was seen not just as a political maneuver, but as a profound betrayal of democracy itself, creating a wound that has yet to heal. The 2016 debacle: a movement ignited and extinguished. The turning point came in July 2016 with the leak of nearly 20,000 Democratic National Committee emails by WikiLeaks. The emails revealed a clear institutional bias against the Sanders campaign, confirming the suspicions of many supporters that the system was rigged. Communications showed key DNC figures discussing ways to undermine his campaign, including floating the idea of questioning his faith. The revelations led to the immediate resignation of DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz and a formal apology from the DNC to Senator Sanders and his supporters for the inexcusable remarks. This confirmation of bias created a deep sense of betrayal. The frustration was palpable at the Democratic National Convention, where, despite Sanders' own call for unity, his supporters voiced their anger through protests and boos. For many, his concession was a capitulation, and their chants of "We want Bernie" were a testament to a movement that felt its voice had been silenced by the very party it sought to reform. The Superdelegate Saga: From Compromise to Coronation. In the wake of the contentious 2016 primary, the Sanders camp won a key concession: a reform of the superdelegate system. These party insiders, who are not bound to the results of primaries, were seen as an undemocratic tool for the establishment. In 2018, the DNC voted to bar superdelegates from voting on the first ballot of any contested presidential nomination, a move hailed as a victory for the party's progressive wing. However, this reform proved to be short-lived. In 2024, the Democratic National Committee adopted new rules allowing superdelegates to vote on the first ballot during a virtual roll call, even if a candidate had not secured a majority of pledged delegates through the primary process. This rule change was utilized to fast-track the nomination of Vice President Kamala Harris after President Biden withdrew from the race, effectively bypassing a contested primary and reinforcing the view that the system is ultimately designed to serve the interests of the party establishment. A threat to democracy? The Democratic Party consistently positions itself as the defender of American democracy. Yet for a skeptical electorate, this messaging can ring hollow. Critics argue that a party that utilizes internal mechanisms like superdelegates, which appear to dilute the power of the popular vote, undermines its own credibility when it decries external threats to democracy. This perceived hypocrisy fuels the belief that the party has become what its fiercest opponents have long claimed it is, an entity that prioritizes its own power over democratic principles. An anonymous observer noticed, the worst thing the Democrats could have done, and did, was to make the Republicans right. They became what the Republicans made them out to be a decade ago. No home on the right. A rejection of partisan hypocrisy. For most who felt betrayed by the Democrats, the Republican Party is not a viable alternative. While some anti-establishment anger did fuel a move toward Donald Trump in 2016, many others cannot reconcile with the GOP, particularly after the disastrous war in Iraq and the implementation of the Anti-Civil Liberty Patriot Act. They see a profound hypocrisy in a party that champions individual freedom while promoting state-sponsored abortion bans, pushing for book censorship in schools, and threatening to deport legal residents for exercising free speech. The GOP's decrying of cancel culture rings hollow when it actively engages in its own forms of censorship. This makes the party an untenable choice for anyone seeking a principled political home, reinforcing their alienation from the two-party system. Conclusion. Trapped between two parties they feel have abandoned core principles, these politically homeless voters face an uncertain path. The most potent response is to remain clear-sighted, developing the capacity to criticize both parties accurately and resist tribal loyalties. The danger, however, is succumbing to the simplistic rage depicted in The Simpsons, where a newly partisan Homer, after being influenced by cable news, proclaims, "Liberals, I hate them so much." For too many disillusioned voters, this has become a grim reality, trading one form of tribalism for another. Rather than falling into that trap, the goal should be to hold all institutions accountable to the democratic ideals they claim to represent, exposing hypocrisy wherever it is found.